I hope tonight we make it all the way to Joseph. This one here is right above the caption on the chapter says Jacob returns home. Remember, of course, we remember Jacob and Esau. They had been at odds over a blessing and over the inheritance, and Jacob's mother said, "You better get out of town because if your daddy dies, why Esau's going to kill you." So anyway, he leaves. He's been gone for how long?
14 years.
More than that.
Yeah, he worked for the sheep too.
Yeah. He'd been gone at least 20 years. You say, well, tempers will go down. Now, sometimes yes and sometimes no. Some people hold a grudge for life. You hear about some of these feuds in some of these areas and feuds with relatives, and sometimes it goes on so far that nobody even knows what it all started about, But all they know is we're having a feud. But Jacob is scared to death to go back home. But God's told him to go back home. And he's blessed him richly. He got 2 wives and 2 extra wives, concubines, as the King James calls them. So they're a little bit less than a wife, I guess. But anyway, that's what. I don't know. I hadn't never figured why guys want more than one wife at the time. That's what I hadn't figured out. If all of them as mean as man, and I'll tell her. She may be watching it, but anyway, she knows we argue all the time.
All right, I just text her.
All right, that'll be fine. She'll know why I said it. Because we all right. Well, we talked about him working for the 2 women for 14 years, and he said he's still working on paying for his already. Still, that's the way it is, But anyway, so he gets 4 wives and a whole bunch of kids. And he has made a deal with his father-in-law that I'll take all the black sheep and the spotted sheep and the striped sheep and striped goats and all the odd color stuff. Leland's got a picture on his telephone, or it had last week anyway. Was it a sheep or a goat? Jacob's sheep. That's what it's called. That is the ugliest thing you ever seen in your life. It's black and white spotted, and it had 4 horns instead of 2. Is that right? Had horns going this way and horns going this way. I don't know why anybody want one of them things, but anyway, that's what they called it, with Jacob's sheep. But Jacob, Kathy, you find it?
Yeah. We
Kathy?
looked at it last week. I didn't remember the 4 horns.
It's a sheep, not a goat. That's a sheep. Anyway, he took everything odd colored. Well, he goes about and he skins up some poles where they be striped, and so all the goats have striped babies, and all the sheep have spotted. Anyway, first thing you know, he owns nearly all the sheep and the goats.
But I think he pinned up all the
Yeah,
white rams.
yeah. Yeah, he kind of brought things to his favor just a little bit in an occasion or two. But anyway, his wives' brothers got talking about, well, he has stole everything our daddy had. He stole all our inheritance. Yes, sir.
I may be wrong, but they come out with a song, coat of many colors.
Yes, the coat of many colors. That's on Joseph. Yeah. Yeah, that's on Joseph, one of his sons. Coat of many colors. Dolly Parton's. I think she wrote it in. I know she sang it. I think she wrote it too.
I think Moses wrote
No. Different version of it was. But anyway, Jacob hears a rumbling among his brother-in-laws and said, we got to get out of town. So they just jump up and, we're not going to tell anybody, we're going to leave. And so he gathered up all his women and all his little kids and all the servants he has and all the goats and the sheep. Because Laban is out doing something else, and it's 3 days before anybody knows that they're gone. Well, here they come. You know, you stole everything. You stole all my sheep, my goats, and of course, that's when Jacob tells him, said, I worked for you for 20 years, and you changed my wages 10 times, he said. 14 years just to get the first 2 wives. And he only wanted one. That's what he started out with. But once you get 2, you're supposed to have 4, I guess. I don't know, but anyway. That's what they did. That's just good, bad, or otherwise. What thing did Rachel steal that amazed me? That because God sent Jacob back and sent Isaac back to his family, and they're really good people to get your wives. What thing did Rachel steal that kind of sticks out? His household idols. Laban wasn't such a good fellow after all, was he? Besides just dealing with his son-in-law, he had idols. Jacob didn't know anybody stole them. Rachel was good enough to hide them that they didn't find them. Then they start to go back home, and they get close to getting home, and Jacob got this in his head, well, I better send some gifts to my brother because I know he's still mad. So he sends gifts of different amounts of animals, camels and goats and donkeys and sheep. And so when you run across a guy named Esau, tell him his brother sends them to him as a gift. And then they come back and said, oh, here comes Esau, and I've forgotten the number. He's got a whole bunch of guys with him. Went too far. Is it 200 or 400 men you got with him? I've lost my place. Colin, you remember how many men that Esau had with him? Chapter 32, verse 6. The messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to your brother Esau, and furthermore, he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him. So Jacob just automatically expects the worst. So he divides the animals up, kind of half and half, and well, if he takes after this guys, you others can escape. Then he divides his women and kids up. He puts the least favorite wives and their kids in the front, and then he's got the most favored wife back with him. Say, well, maybe we can get away before they kill all of us. But Esau doesn't have anything in that in his mind, does he? He's just glad to see him. He said, what is all this stuff? All these gifts, all these people, all these little kids. God had really blessed him. So Jacob settles in Mine said he settled in an area called Shechem. That's the way I pronounce it. And he's got one daughter that's named. Her name is Dinah. And let me find one of the guys now. I forgot his name.
Daughter of Leah.
His daughter, she was the daughter of Leah. The guy, though, he was his name is Shechem. And anyway, he gets Dinah and just takes her, for lack of a better appropriate word, and that was something that shouldn't be done. And so some of Jacob's sons says, well, we'll make you a deal. We'll marry your daughters and y'all marry our daughters, but one thing about it, you've got to be circumcised. And so they agreed to that, and they said that the third day after circumcision, when they were not able to fight, then they went and killed all the men. Because he had just taken their sister. And Jacob said, we'll have to leave town. You know, we're in a visiting country. But he goes to one country. Esau goes to another area, because like Abraham and Lot, they both had so much stuff the land couldn't take care of all of it. What does Esau's descendants end up being called? There's a name for them. Huh? They're called Edomites. 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 That boy's getting restless. They're called Edomites. Esau's descendants become a great nation. Ishmael's descendants become a great nation. And Isaac's descendants become a great nation. And they all been fussing and fighting over the same set of land ever since then, basically. Because Isaac was the one that God promised the land to. Through him. Through Abraham, through him was Isaac. Isaac's the one that, his family was the one that God gave the writings to, the oracles or decrees to. And of course they disobeyed God just as much as anybody else did, but they had the writings. And they had the people that God would send them to straighten them out. And they'd straighten out a while, and then they'd go back the other way and get wild. God changes Jacob's name. What does he change his name to? Israel. God changes, several people's names in the scriptures. He changes Abram to Abraham, Sarai to Sarah. Here he changes Jacob to Israel. What other, it doesn't say God changed his name, but what other person in the scripture do we read about it changed his name, or his name changes in what they're in the writings? Saul to Paul. Now, a new commentary I have says that Saul was the Jewish term and Paul was the Greek term, and that Luke, being a Gentile writer, Luke is the one that starts calling him in his writings Paul. And I mean, he didn't really change his name. They just went to, because now he is going to the Gentiles to preach anyway, basically. Yes, sir.
Was that was a law back then on the 8th day?
On the 8th day, a Jewish boy had to be circumcised on the 8th day, yeah. These are grown men that we're talking about over here a while ago. Yeah, but on the 8th day they were to be circumcised.
I'm sure proud of Christ.
Huh?
I said, I'm proud of Christ.
Yeah.
After he came, they stopped all this.
Stopped all that, yes. But anyway, Jacob moved to a place called Bethel. Esau, he moves to a different area. And then, of course, we go across a couple of chapters that gives all their descendants and the chiefs that they go in and the tribes that they start and things of this nature. But the Edomites don't get along with the Israelites later on. I say none of them gets along, basically. But if you'll notice, you know, Jacob leaves the town because his mother said, your daddy's getting old and he's about to die. He's gone 20 years and he come back and Isaac's still alive. How old does Isaac live to be?
So it's
180 years old. So 20 years prior to this, he thought he was about to die any minute. He'd give everything off to the blessings and what have you. And Rebecca thought that he was fixing to die any minute, so she sends Jacob off because she knows Esau will kill him. She said, I can't stand to lose a husband and a son on the same day. And he lived over another 20 years. Said, verse 29, chapter 35, Isaac breathed his last and died, and he was gathered to his people, an old man of ripe age, and his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. So they... And then chapter 36 talked about Esau moving, and then the rest, most of the rest of that chapter is about his descendants. And they've all got names that I can't pronounce. And names we don't hear about it too much today. Any questions? Okay, next week, now Benny, we're been too early, so don't, anyway, next week, we're going to start on Joseph. Now, I know we went to some of this other stuff. It's not as interesting as we get to Joseph. We get a little more stuff that really shows God's plan for things and the results of favoritism among adults to their children. And also the way that God handles things, and even though things look like they're really bleak, for those who persevere, God has a plan, and He had a plan for Joseph. And he sustained him through all kinds of, everywhere, no matter how bad the circumstances were, Joseph prospered. He prospered in Potiphar's house till Potiphar's wife accused him of immorality. He profited in jail. He was the one who got to run. He was the head trustee, if you will, we'd call today, in jail. You know, several years ago, we went to the sight and sound dealers on Joseph, and they showed Joseph being chained up. Well, Joseph had to run to jail. They missed that part. The Bible says he had to run to jail. And then when he gets into the Pharaoh's house, he's the only guy in the country that's got any more authority than he does, and it's Pharaoh himself. Pharaoh's king, or whatever you want to call him. He is the ultimate judge, jury, and what have you, executioner. What he says goes, Pharaoh. Okay, next week, chapter 37, we'll try to start in on Joseph. We'll talk about that coat. And the trouble it brought, just like Dolly Parton's song, it didn't bring her any good luck either.